Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle to triumph, a platform that allows individuals to to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. If you are new to this podcast, make sure you follow, like, subscribe, and share. Let's jump right in. Thank you for joining us today for this episode of Her Version. I have an amazing guest speaker with us today, Jessica. Jessica is a mother and aspires to write a book for good reason. Her story involves suicide, rape, murder, abuse, and neglect. I'm honored that Jessica is here today, willing to share this amazing story of darkness to light. If you're enduring any sort of abuse, I encourage you to call the Domestic Violence Hotline at 800-799-7322 for assistance. Welcome, Jessica.
Hi, thanks for having me today.
Of course. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to sit down and tell your story and share the struggles and the steps that you've taken to get to where you are today. One of the first things that I like to do before kind of jumping into the meat of the story is just to give some sort of a backstory as far as, what kind of childhood you had and, what kind of child you were growing up. So do you mind kind of giving us a little bit on that?
Well, tragedy in my life started early. Right before my second birthday, my dad committed suicide. My mom had some severe issues with depression, so I was mostly raised by my great aunt. I lived with her on weekends from the time I was 2 till I hit kindergarten, and then I lived with her mostly full time up until I was a teenager.
Wow.
My mom remarried. She had more kids. I did decent in school.
Do you feel as if the suicide of your dad affected you at such a young age? Did you kind of grasp that, or did it take a while?
It took a while to learn that I was different. I didn't have the normal dad that everybody else had that would do, Father's Day activities at school and things like that. I had a stepdad who was, he tried to be there, but he wasn't my dad.
Yeah. I can totally get that. 100%. When did your stepdad come into your life?
I was 5. And he was very gruff and very tattooed and very large. I can remember my mom telling me that we went to a family gathering and I walked in first and told people not to be scared. It was just my new dad. So that was kind of different.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. And then as far as your teenage years, going into high school, how was that for you?
My teenage years were like the typical teenage years. I was mostly a good kid, but I snuck out of the house on occasion. I had the occasional drink, typical unruly teenager.
100%. And then as far as, going into adulthood, but what were the struggles you had going into adulthood?
Adulthood hit me early. When I was 17 years old, I met the man that I would marry, and I wound up pregnant. I was 6 months pregnant at my high school graduation.
Wow. No kidding.
Yeah.
And how old was he?
He was 26.
26 and you were 17.
Yeah.
Did your parents have anything to say about that, or did they like him?
He was okay. You know, he treated me decently. He was respectful toward my mom.
Makes sense.
Didn't have many issues at first.
Yeah, definitely. So when did you guys get married? What age? 18, 19?
I had just turned 18 about 3 weeks before we got married.
Wow. So like really 18, like fresh 18.
Yeah.
Were you happy on your wedding day?
I was.
Yeah.
I really was.
You were pregnant, I assume.
I was very pregnant.
Really pregnant, yeah. But happy.
I was happy that day.
That's good. That's good. When did you give birth? How soon after? Must have been like.
I got married in June, and I had my daughter in September.
Wow.
At 42 weeks.
Wow. So, young mom and a man who's about 10 years older than you.
Yep.
How did that go?
It was hard being a young mom.
Did you work?
I did not. I was not allowed to work.
Yeah.
And he was very much the provider. And as I got older, I kind of realized he was controlling me that way. I mean, you don't realize it when you're in that situation, but I couldn't work.
Yeah.
I couldn't have access to the money unless I asked him for access to the money. I couldn't go places unless I was dependent on him to go places.
Yeah.
So
how long were you married before you started to kind of see these signs? Like right away or within the first year or a few years?
It was pretty much right away.
Really?
Yeah.
So as soon as you got married, pretty much, he just kind of started becoming a little more controlling.
A little at first. You know, I mean, small things that I didn't really, I was focused on a child, so I didn't pick up on all the other red flags, I guess you'd call them, up until they were right in my face.
Yeah, 100%. And then how long were you guys married for?
We got married in 2007. Our divorce was finalized in 2012.
No kidding. Did you have any more children?
Yes, we had a son in 2009.
Nice. So you have a boy and a girl, or?
After my first husband, I met my second husband, so we had a son together. I have a daughter and 2 sons.
Got it. Okay. Very cool. So I want to ask, one of the main issues with abuse is ignoring things that, looking back, you shouldn't have ignored. What were kind of like a couple of, pretty prominent red flags that happened during the duration of your relationship where now looking back, you're like, oh my God, that was totally a red flag?
We lived in a long-term rental in a hotel when we first got married.
Wow.
And when we first got together.
Yeah.
And there were 4 rooms upstairs. One at this end of the hallway, one here, and one at that end of the hallway. And the 4 of us that lived up there, all of us, we would visit each other. Our doors were pretty much open all the time. I went from our apartment to the apartment at the far end of the hall, and an old friend from high school was there. And I had known him for years. And my husband came home and saw that I was talking to a man and grabbed him by the throat and held him up in the corner of the room.
Oh my.
Yeah, that was a pretty big one that I just kind of swept under the rug. You know, he's had a rough day at work. He wanted me home so that I could have been cooking, you know. It was my fault. I was in the wrong.
Yeah. Was there any signs, or not signs, but did you also maybe see that as him loving you so much? Or did you view it as jealousy?
I did until the first time he hit.
Got it. Got it.
Well, the first time it wasn't me. The first time he punched a hole in the wall by my head.
Wow.
So at first I thought this was love, protection, and then it was jealousy, and then it was, I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
It was his behavior that was not right.
Yeah, definitely. What was the turning point that finally led to the divorce? What happened?
He had been on drugs before and told me that he was no longer using. And I had finally been allowed to work. We were having some financial difficulties, and I had gotten a job, and he didn't like where I worked. So I had worked my regular shift and then 3 hours overtime. And I came home, and the next day was Sunday, and he got up super early and was really irritated with me. And I could just tell something was off, and he tried to take the kids and leave. And I told him he wasn't going to take the kids anywhere acting like that.
Yeah.
And he left. And I got up and started cleaning the house, and I found a stash.
Really?
And I packed his stuff and called a friend and had all of his stuff sitting outside when he got back.
Wow. Good for you.
So it took a lot.
Yeah. So just like that, you were like, you said you weren't going to do this anymore, so that's it.
It took me a little while to get there, but yeah.
Wow.
He had a stash in our home where our kids could get to it.
Yeah.
He obviously didn't care about the safety of our kids, because if our kids could have got to that,
yeah,
they could have overdosed.
Yeah.
He could have killed our children.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to him, it was just like, whatever.
Yeah. You could have possibly saved your children doing that. You never know. Crazy. So he gets home from work and his stuff is all over the front lawn?
It was Sunday. He wasn't going to work. I don't know where he went.
Ah.
For quite a few hours.
No kidding. And then, so he came home, and what happened?
Apparently I didn't get all of his stuff. He had loaded most of it into the truck, and he came inside and went to our closet. We were living in a different house at this time, but he went into the closet and removed something and got a gun out from behind something and pointed it at me. And I was sitting in the living room with the kids in my lap, and they were upset. And he pointed that gun at me while I was holding our children and said, one of us will die before this is over.
Wow. What the heck do you do?
I went and got an emergency protection order.
Wow.
Which, when we went to court for our divorce, I later dropped, which was the stupidest thing I had ever done. But that's what I did to try to save myself and my kids. And
definitely. So how long after that did you guys divorce? I mean, was it a quick divorce or did he drag it out?
that happened. That happened in April of 2011, and their divorce was finalized in February of 2012.
Got it. Wow, so not bad.
Not bad at all.
It's pretty average.
Well, in Kentucky, where I live, you have to be separated for 6 months before you can go through the divorce. And then you have to attend so many
classes or something.
Parenting classes if you have younger children.
Wow, so they make you do some stuff.
They make you do some stuff.
Jeez, that's interesting. So I know now, that you wound up getting remarried eventually. When did you find husband number 2, and what were the 2 biggest differences between them?
We worked together.
Really?
That I had gotten. And the main difference was that he was safe.
Yeah.
I could yell at this man. I could lose my temper. He could lose his temper. It didn't matter. There was no hitting. There was no violence. I didn't have to worry about anything. He didn't drink to excess. He absolutely would not touch a drug. He very rarely took drugs that the doctor prescribed him. So I knew I didn't have to worry about him going and buying drugs off the street.
Got it.
So day and night kind of different.
Definitely. So you met him at work. Was this like he asked you out to lunch, or how did that happen?
We were leaving, and it was a huge parking lot, and I was getting ready to pull out onto the main park, and he started walking. I almost hit him with my car. And he asked for my number, and there we go.
Wow. And then you guys did a little bit of dating?
Before we got married, we dated for a little over 2 years.
Good for you. Good for you. And then got hitched and had another son.
The son came before the wedding.
Sorry.
We had our son in November, and we got married the next October.
Very cool. Very cool. So, I have a question. How long, or maybe you didn't have this issue, but how long did it take, if it took any time at all, for you to trust him? Because coming from something that's so volatile into something that's not, did your body kind of like not trust for a little while, or how did that work for you?
With Cody, everything fell into place.
Wow.
I felt safe almost immediately. I trusted him almost from the very beginning.
Wow.
Like I said, it was day and night between the two of them. So it was just...
Did your kids love him? Your kids love him?
Absolutely.
Wow.
They absolutely loved him. They called him dad. They were very excited that he was a part of our lives.
Absolutely. How many years apart were you guys?
He was 6 months younger than me.
Really?
Yeah.
Look at that.
The first time ever. I had
Look at
never dated anybody younger than me. It was very different.
Did he look younger than you, or did people not really notice? Or no?
I don't know if you can see
Let's see.
very well.
Oh, he's cute.
Yeah, he wears the hat, so you can't see.
Yes, what a good picture. That's a pretty charm.
Thank you.
I love that.
From Plunder.
Very pretty. Absolutely. So, you're happily married, 3 children, life is flowing by. Your ex-husband is still kind of hanging out a little bit, I'm assuming, because of the children.
Yes, we had joint custody.
Got it. And then when did things start to get hostile with your ex?
When the kids started having trouble in school. We had some issues with a not so great school district, and I decided to pull the kids out and homeschool. And at first, my ex was, okay, fine, you do you.
Yeah.
And he didn't realize that also meant when he had the kids, he would have to do something.
Yes.
And so he got very upset and he filed for full custody. I filed an emergency protection order against him after him and his new wife threatened to kill me for bringing the kids home late from a birthday party.
Wow.
Yeah. And they had brought them home late the past 2 times. But they threatened to kill me when I did it the first time.
Oh, my.
And so I filed the emergency protection order again. And the police brought the kids to me because they did it in front of my youngest. And then while we were at court for the EPO, he served me with papers saying that he was filing for full custody.
What? And then obviously you're like, no, you're not.
I got a lawyer and we went to court.
Wow. Did you actually drop money on that whole thing?
Oh, yeah.
Like a lot of money?
A lot of money. But I mean, these are my kids.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I went through a lot with these kids. These are my babies.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. And then what happened? I mean, I know the story has an end, not an ending, but sort of an ending. What happened?
He was losing and he didn't like it. We were still going through the court proceedings. And it was determined that I was allowed to still homeschool and that he would get to see the kids every other weekend. Well, in April, he stopped his visits. Wouldn't come around, didn't meet where we were supposed to meet to pick up the kids or anything. We went every other weekend and we sat there for an hour and he never showed up. So I called my lawyer and I was like, we've scheduled vacation. We're supposed to be back on our weekend. We're supposed to leave on his weekend. What do I do? And he was like, go and sit there at the time you need to, then leave. If he doesn't show, he doesn't show. And he didn't. So My mom was living in Minnesota at the time, and we went on a little mini vacation to visit my mom. And my husband decided to leave the day early. Sorry. When we got home, my ex was sitting in the yard, and when we pulled in the driveway, he jumped up with a gun. And he shot my husband in the face.
Oh my God.
And he shot me. And he took my kids. I'm sorry. I don't know how, but after the kids were out of the vehicle, our vehicle rode down a hill and into the woods at the back corner of our property. And I jumped out and ran to the neighbors, and they called 911, and they helped me until the police arrived. And the first officer on the scene was my cousin's husband, and I pretty much told him, I was like, he took my kids, and he took off, and they transferred me down to the church right down where we live by ambulance so that I could be flown out. And I was very distraught, and I was screaming at him to take Cody first. And they told me they did. And then I left. And they flew me out. And when I got to the other hospital, they told me that Cody didn't make it.
Oh my God.
And I don't remember anything else from that day.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Where did he shoot you?
In my arm.
Wow. Oh my God.
I've had a dozen surgeries just to save it.
Wow.
This part is actually my leg.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you think he meant to kill you?
I know he did.
You were in the passenger side.
I was on the passenger side. If it would have been any other day, the kids and I would have been home alone.
Really?
Any other Friday. And he told people that he worked with that he was going to do this, that he was going to kill me and kill himself and kill our kids.
Oh my gosh.
And
I'm so sorry.
Thanks. I never know what to say when people say they're sorry.
I know. We don't know what to say on this side either.
But 20 surgeries later, and a couple months after that, I got my kids back. They were placed in emergency custody while I was getting my medical care. And my husband thankfully had life insurance, so we bought a house.
Wow. Insane. As far as the hospital. I can't even. Oh, I can't even imagine what I would be thinking. Because you're dealing with your husband and then you're dealing with your kids. What was going through your mind when you were at the hospital? Who was there for you?
The minute that my cousin's husband showed up, he called his wife and he was like, "You need to let them know." And so she got in touch with family and they called my mom in Minnesota, and she was down on the first flight she could find. The first person to arrive at the hospital was another cousin who lived in the city where the hospital was. I had so much extended family, and they've always been super close. We do Easter together and Christmas together, and you know, we're a big family, and we're always there for each other, and they were really there for me. Sorry, I got to crying, and now my contacts are.
How long into the hospital visit did it take for somebody to inform you about Corey?
About Cody?
Cody.
Yes. I was still being triaged when they told me.
So they pretty much told you right away.
I got up there and I asked about him. I was like, how's Cody? Where's Cody? And they brought the chaplain in there to tell me. I knew the minute he walked in.
Wow. How did your children handle it?
Children are very resilient. They've probably handled this a lot better than I have. My oldest son especially, because he saw and he remembers. I wasn't there, but they told me that they had to wash jelly out of his hair.
Oh.
It wasn't jelly.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry. So, when this happened, when the incident happened, were all of your children with you?
Yes. They were all in the back seat of the car.
Oh, I didn't know they were all with you.
Yeah. All of them. And my daughter physically fought her father to bring my youngest son. He was just going to leave him there, thinking that he had killed me and Cody. He was just going to leave him.
The little one?
Yeah.
Because it's not his.
Not his. And he didn't care.
Wow. And then he just took the kids back to the house, just like back to his house? Just
his parents. My kids told me that he asked them where they wanted to go, and my daughter told me, she said, "I want to go to Mama and Poppy's," which is his parents' house. And she told me she thought that she could call the police. But thankfully, I had so many friends in that community, and they caught up with him before he left the county. So by the time he pulled into his parents' house, there were several officers behind him.
Wow. I can't even like imagine as a child seeing my mom and dad get shot by my dad or my stepdad and mom. And then just like get into a vehicle and then he's like, "Where do you want to go?" Like, "I want to go to Burger King." Like, what are you going to say? Like, as if he, I don't even, that's just insanity to me.
Yeah. He had been drinking quite a bit, so I don't think he had fully processed what he had done. The police officers found a fifth of Jim Beam with this much left in the bottom of it.
Wow.
For those who don't know what this much is, that's about 2.5 inches left in the bottom.
Oh my gosh, insane. So he just leaves and he's just planning on just hanging out and living his life out?
No.
Or he's too wasted to even realize, I guess.
I feel like if the police hadn't found my kids when they did, my kids wouldn't have made it through the night.
Really? Did he think he killed you?
I believe so.
You just were laying there.
Well, I had a pretty big hunt took out of my face.
No
So
kidding.
there was blood all down my face and blood all down my arm, and it covered kind of my chest. So I feel like he thought that,
That was enough.
yeah.
Ugh. God, I can't even imagine. Oh,
It was not an easy time.
I so appreciate you coming on here and sharing this because, something like this, it's like the worst, people say, "I just had the worst day." And
I think this is one of those experiences that you think happens to everybody else. You hear about things like this on the news, or you hear about it, a couple counties over, a husband and wife got into a fight, but you never expect that it'll happen to you. You don't think that they're that kind of person. It doesn't register that you could be in that kind of danger until you are.
yeah, definitely. As far as after, which go ahead.
Just a second. Sorry. Gotta love kids.
As far as
I can hear you. Go.
as far as leaving the hospital and all the feelings that would go through your mind after a tragedy like this, you have family around you, people are there supporting you, but like, what are your initial thoughts coming home after something like this? What does it look like? What do you do?
Pardon my language, but I didn't do a damn thing.
Okay.
I moved in with my aunt and uncle because I had to have help with everything.
Yeah.
And I laid around with my kids. I laid around on the couch. I was just kind of, I guess, in a state of shock, according to my therapist. And I didn't do anything until I had to.
What were the feelings you had?
I didn't have feelings. I was numb. I mean, my whole life had changed.
Yeah.
My whole, everything to me at that time, everything was just gone. You know, my former life was gone. I had no source of income myself. The man that had provided for me for the past several years, it was just all gone.
100% all gone.
And it took a while to get out of my mind, that mindset.
Yeah.
And my kids really helped with that.
I can imagine. When did this happen? What year?
It was 2018.
Wow, so like not long ago.
This is how I know that it was not just some, he just up and got on drugs one day and decided. He did it on what would have been our anniversary.
Really?
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Did you notate that like during that day? Did you actually think that in your mind, like, oh, this would have been our anniversary? Did that pop in your head? No, it didn't even. It wasn't even a thing. Have you talked to him since?
I have not.
Nothing.
I've written many letters. I don't send them.
Wow.
I don't need his answers. I don't need. To me, that's not closure. That's just dredging up something that's going to cause even more bad feelings. And I don't need that.
Yeah. Definitely. As far as you had mentioned when we had originally talked that, first coming home, it was hard for you to even watch TV sometimes because you'd get triggered so easily.
I got triggered at everything for that first while. I couldn't be in the passenger seat of a car. I couldn't eat certain things because it was something that I had cooked for Cody and he really enjoyed. I couldn't go certain places because it's somewhere that I had been with Cody, and everything just triggered me.
Yeah. Are you still kind of dealing with a lot of that, or has time kind of allowed you to sort of breathe more? How is that working?
I still have triggers, and sometimes I can recognize, okay, this is what's causing me to get upset. This is why I relate it to this. I need to take a minute. And then sometimes it's just like, bam, and there it is. And I can't do anything for a while after that because I'm having to build back up to that normalized level.
Yeah, definitely. You talked briefly, when we had originally spoken about survival guilt.
For the longest time, I felt guilty because if I wouldn't have divorced my first husband, if we wouldn't have done that, if I wouldn't have remarried Cody, if, then Cody would have probably still been alive. Yeah. I might have died, but Cody would still be here. And that's really, really hard to work through.
Um, I know that you said that your ex had shot Cody in the face. Did did he say anything? Did you say anything to him? Was there, or was that it? That's just it.
He was screaming to get out of the car. That's the only thing
Really?
I remember was he was standing outside with the gun held to the window, yelling at us to get out of the car. And we didn't.
Did you see Cody?
If I did, I have blocked it. I don't have that memory.
Oh,
I'm sure that I did, because we were in the car. As I said, we wrecked, and he talked to me. He told me to run. And I know that I did. I know that I listened. But I don't have a memory of his face. Thank God.
so he actually yelled out for you to run. He said, like, get out and run.
He told me to run. It sounded off because I know this side of his face was. But yeah.
So I know, we've talked about um, when it happened, and a few years have passed, and here you are. You're in a home, and he left you life insurance, and your children are alive and they're healthy. What are you doing for yourself as far as taking steps towards healing and finding joy, I guess, after this?
Therapy. So much therapy.
When did you finally decide to do that? Is that something you did right away, or did it take you a while to finally say, hey, this is something I need?
Well, it was something that was mandated, actually, by CPS.
Really?
Since they had taken my children while I was in the hospital to get them back, I had to enroll us all in therapy. And I am so glad that that was the requirement.
Yeah, I'm going to say.
It really made a difference. And I don't want to say how quickly I bounced back, because I still, you don't bounce back from something like that. But it really helped me deal with a lot of my more major issues.
Definitely. Definitely. So even the children.
Yes.
Wow.
The kids went through a modified version of trauma therapy. And once they graduated, they weren't required to be seen anymore. We still occasionally make appointments if I feel like something's going on that I may not be qualified to deal with, which that's happening less and less now. But yeah, therapy.
That's awesome. And I actually love that they, like you said, required that, because I feel like, in my circumstance at least, not to project me on you, but I feel like I would have taken way too long to do that.
If it would not have been mandated, I probably wouldn't have went to therapy.
Yeah, that's what I feel like too.
It's I don't feel comfortable usually talking to strangers about my issues. I don't feel comfortable, going to a strange place and just being like, hey, this is what happened. Help me.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it is in therapy.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. What are some positive things that are happening in your life right now? Kind of like despite everything that you've gone through.
Oh, goodness. Where do you want me to start? I'm writing my book.
Yes.
I'm kind of excited about that.
Wow.
It's taken me a long time, and it's probably going to take me a dozen years to actually get through everything, because let me tell you, that'll bring up some triggers.
Yeah. Holy cow.
I'm going back to school. Actually, I am working on my bachelor's degree in human services and counseling, so that's kind of neat.
Yes.
It also also has its own set of triggers.
I bet. I bet.
But it does help.
That's awesome. Wow. How does well, first of all, is that normally a subject that you would have like gone to school for?
I enjoyed psychology when I took it in high school. I enjoyed the psychology class that I took for my associate's degree. It's not a career path I had ever envisioned. I don't feel like I'm necessarily the right person to be helping people with those kind of issues, or at least I didn't. Now maybe I'm a little bit more qualified, but no, it was not something. I have always wanted to be a librarian. Always. Do you see the books?
Yes, yes.
They're
yes.
everywhere. Like I have 11 bookcases in my house.
Wow.
So it was always librarian. I always wanted to work in a library. And I still might, but for right now, this is my path.
Absolutely. Do you see, looking, even just speaking to me now, do you see how your journey could impact and help others?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I've talked to a few, there's a women's shelter a few counties over, and I've talked to a few of the women from there, and I'm like, I'm glad that you were able to get out. Please don't go back. Please set up a system, create your new life, because that's not the worst it could have been. It could always be worse.
Yeah.
So we've,
That's awesome.
had to do what we can when we realize that we have these stories that can help other people. I feel like we need to share it so that they can benefit from it.
Definitely. Yeah, 100%. As far as talking at women's shelters, is that one-on-one, or are you in a little group, or how are you doing that?
It's one-on-one, and it's usually because it's someone that I knew before,
Got it.
or someone that has heard of me that's reached out.
Wow. Once you write that book, everyone's going to be reaching out. You're going to have to be doing group after. There aren't going to be enough hours in the day for one-on-ones. Oh, I love that. I love that you're already taking the step towards that, because, I mean, what that journey could do for other people is, I mean, it's priceless, really, because, you lost somebody. So you'd be saving others, you know?
Yes. Sorry.
That's okay. I totally get it. It happens all the time. So now, looking at you now, how do you decide to show up for your world now?
Oh, goodness. Honestly, just being here.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's just all you can do.
Yeah.
Raising my kids the best way that I can. Letting them know that the trauma does not have to define them
Yes.
because I'm not letting it define me.
Yes, girl.
I mean, sometimes that's all you can do.
Yep. And sometimes that's all that's needed. Sometimes that's all that's needed. I have a quote that I got from somebody, I don't know who, but it's sometimes all you can do is all you can do, and all you can do is enough. You know?
Exactly.
Exactly. 100%. So, school, books, book, maybe. What's your plans going into the
Just the
next?
one.
What's your no trilogies?
No trilogies. If I can
Oh,
get past this first one, I'll be good.
what do you have going in as far as the next few years? Do you have any big plans for the next few years?
I've got a couple, but for right now, I'm just going to kind of keep those to myself.
I hear you. I hear you on that one. And then as far as looking back, if you could look at and go back and speak to your 20-year-old self, what would you say to her?
You know, that was the hardest question of yours the hardest one for me because I don't know. At that time, I was already with my first husband. We already had our kids. You know, if I would have changed anything then, would it have made a difference? So I don't think I would go back and say anything.
You would let it fold out as it did.
You kind of have to
Yeah.
because I wouldn't be the person that I am now if she wasn't the person that she was then.
Absolutely.
And, you know, sometimes you just got to go through it.
Yep. Sometimes you just have to go through it.
Exactly.
100%. Well, like I said earlier, thank you.
Anything? I'm glad to help. I hope it does help.
And I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
Your children are very blessed to have a mother that is looking forward and healing. You know, there's so many individuals that just refuse to heal, and they sit in the muck of it all. And I love that you are taking the steps to move forward and to give back. You know, to take your journey, and instead of it being in vain, instead of it just being a blip in your story, you're actually using it. And I think that that is so commendable. And I think it's something that your children will benefit from in the future.
I think that's why I'm doing it. I need for my children to see me take my power back.
Absolutely.
You know, they saw me at my lowest. Now watch me rise.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. Oh, this has been very emotional. uh, do you have any closing thoughts?
To all the women out there who are in a situation that they are even questioning, don't ignore the red flags. You might
Absolutely.
not think you have anybody that can help you, but there are always resources. There are always somebody. Get out while you can, because it could have ended so differently for me.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Um, well, I'm going to close up, and I'm going to hope that you'll stay on for a minute or two afterwards, just so I can say thank you. Um, Thank you so much for joining us here on Her Version. If you have an amazing story to share of struggle to triumph, be sure to reach out to me here or at herversion.life. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform with Jessica that allows people to share their truth and inspire others. Have an amazing day. Much love.